The case I'm talking about today is a case of a man who had it all: a beautiful wife, two beautiful little girls, and a baby boy on the way, and a beautiful home, and he threw it away like they didn't matter. This case is about Chris Watts. Who was Chris and Shannon Watts? Chris Watts was the only son of Ronnie and Cindy Watts and has an older sister called Jamie. He was born in May 1985 and grew up in Spring Lake, North Carolina. He had a relatively quiet childhood. He was very close to his father, Ronnie, and was quiet and more subdued, just like him. He was into his cars and mechanics and enjoyed sports and would often go with his dad. He didn't have many friends apart from a couple and kept himself to himself most of the time. He attended E. E. Smith High School in Fayetteville. His teachers said he was quiet but polite student. Shannon Rusak was born on January 10th, 1984, in Clifton, New Jersey, but grew up in Aberdeen, North Carolina. She was raised by her loving parents Frank and Sandy Rushek and had a younger brother called Frankie. She lived in a tight knit community and she went to Pinecrest High School. During her childhood and early adulthood, Shannon was diagnosed with a condition called lupus. This made her really tired a lot and in a lot of pain. She didn't let this condition take over her life though, and was always determined to make a success of it. By the time she was 25, she bought her own home. In 2010, she got a friend request off Facebook by Chris, and she hesitated at first whether to accept it or not, but never thought she would meet him, so thought why not? She eventually met him, and after a few days, she really liked him, especially after all the support he was giving her during her health struggles. Shannon later stated online that Chris was the best thing to ever happen to her. After a couple of years dating Chris, Shannon, they got married. Chris and Shannon got married on the 3rd of November 2012 in Charlotte, North Carolina, in front of their friends and family. Chris's parents and sister didn't go because they didn't get along with Shannon, but his grandmother went. In 2013, they moved to Frederick, Colorado for better health conditions and better career opportunities. Shannon worked for an independent promoter for a company called Level, which is a multi-level marketing company, and would always post products on social media. Chris worked as a mechanics technician company called Anadarko Petroleum. They started a family and had their first daughter on the 17th of December 2013, who they named her Bella Marie. And 2 years later, on 17th of July 2015, they had another daughter who they named Catherine, Celeste Catherine, which they would later nickname her Cece. Shannon showed a happy life on social media, but it wasn't all plain sailing because they had money issues and filed for bankruptcy in 2015. In the summer of 2018, Chris met a co-worker called Nicole Kessinger and started an affair. It was around this time that Shannon would tell him she was pregnant again, and it turns out they were having a baby boy, who they were going to name Nico. Shannon filmed her telling him and put it on social media. From the 27th of June to 7th of August, for 6 weeks, Shannon and the girls would visit family in North Carolina, and she would spend a couple of days at Chris's parents' home, but left earlier after falling out with his mum over his mum giving the girls ice cream that contained nuts in them. Cece had a nut allergy. Shannon phoned Chris to tell him, and he said he would speak to his mum. While Shannon and the girls were away, Chris and Kessinger met up between 4 to 5 times a week and would go to a Shelby American Car Museum, Bandamere Pit, and Great Sands Dune National Park and Preserve, where they would spend a couple of nights camping. Shannon would text Chris throughout, but Chris didn't seem right on his messages. His responses were never the same as usual. Chris would text her friend, she would text her friends to explain his strange behaviour. Chris would eventually meet his family in North Carolina for the last week, and Shannon's family noticed his odd behaviour, and he was very distant from family and the girls. One night, Shannon was up all night because being sick because Tris gave her drugs, hoping she would miscarry. After visiting the Tim family, they would return home, and Shannon would go away for a couple of days on a business trip to Arizona from the 9th of August. While she was away, Tris remained home with Bella and Cece. During that weekend, Tris would hire a babysitter, and him and Kessinger would go out for a meal. Shannon returned home the weekend, but the return flight was delayed due to heavy storm. She was captured on a doorbell camera returning home at 1:48 a.m. on Monday the 13th of August. This was the last time she was seen alive. She was dropped off by a friend, Nicole Atkinson. At some point when she got home, Tris and Shannon had an argument, and he said he wanted a divorce and a separation, and she told him he'll never see the children again. This is where he unalived her. This is his version, but his story kept changing, so no one knows the truth. He then wrapped her up in a bedsheet and put her in his work truck, followed by the girls, and drove 45 minutes to his workplace. He dumped Shannon in a shallow grave, and she had given birth at this point, and went back to the truck and unalived his daughters. He started with Cece and put her in an oil tank, then returned for Bella. He did the same to Bella. According to Tris, her last words were, "Daddy, no." That shocks me to the core how he can still do it. I'm a father myself, and it sickens me what those kids went through from the man who they were supposed to trust. In the morning of Monday, the August 13th, Shannon's friend Nicole couldn't get hold of her and was really worried. She tried to phone her loads of times but couldn't get through. And Shannon hadn't been on social media, which wasn't like her. She also missed an important doctor's appointment. Nicole went around to the house, and after knocking on the door loads of times and getting no answers, she phoned Tris, who didn't seem concerned, so ended up phoning the police. Officer Klingvod came round for a welfare check, and after he couldn't get hold of Shannon, he phoned Tris and told him to come home. When Tris arrived, he allowed Officer Klingvod and a deputy to go into his house to have a look around. Tris didn't seem panicky that Shannon and the girls weren't there. Nicole Atkinson was very suspicious of Tris's behaviour because of his behaviour, and his car was left at the home with the car seats and medication and phone. Tris said Shannon told him they were going on a play date, but thought why would she leave these things at home if true? The police also noticed the bedsheet was missing from the master bed. The next door neighbour Nate Tishmarsh invited Tris and the police into his home to have a look at CCTV he had captured, and it showed Tris backing his work truck up to the garage at 5:17 a.m. and loading things into the truck, but no one else leaving. Tris looked very nervous and couldn't look at the footage, which Nate picked up once Tris left and told Klingvod. Nate told him he's trying to explain things, overly talking about it, which wasn't like him. The next day, on the 14th of August, Tris gave an interview to the media, and he didn't have any tears in his eyes and didn't look like he was up all night with worry, which was picked up by everyone who was watching the interview. Tris was called to the police station for an interview. Police noticed how his story kept changing. The next day, on the 15th of August, Tris came back to the police station for a polygraph test with his dad. He failed the polygraph test at -18. The FBI then interrogated him, and he told them he had unalived Shannon because she'd done it to the girls. The FBI didn't believe him because of where he had put the bodies. Tris was then arrested for murder and taken to jail. The FBI went to his workplace to locate Shannon, Bella, Cece, and Nico, and they used GPS from his truck to know exactly where they were. They found Shannon in the shallow grave and the girls in the oil tanks, but they had to have special caskets to be placed in because of the flammable oil. Tris would later plead guilty to all charges to avoid the death penalty, and he was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms, 2 concurrent life terms, 48 years consecutive, 36 years consecutive, and he is being imprisoned at Dodge Correctional Institution, which is a maximum security prison in Walpin, Wisconsin. In 2019, the FBI visited him in prison and he admitted to all the charges, clearing Shannon's name. This story still sickens me to this day. I have 3 children myself and I love them with all my heart, and I couldn't imagine what I would do if someone hurt them. But I hope I told this case well. I'm thinking of everyone affected by this case, including Shannon's family and friends and community. This is my first story on any case at all, and I hope you've enjoyed what I've been saying today. I did my best to talk about it in the utmost respect, and if I've missed any details out, I do apologise. But I hope you liked it, and this is hopefully the first of many. Thank you for your time, and rest in peace to Shannon, Bella, Cece, and Nico. Amen to them. And God bless their families.